All right, how's everybody doing tonight? Welcome back to Make Comics Great Again, Make Comics Fun Again. Someone could give me a real quick shout out in the comments. That would be great. Got a couple of regulars here. Vaz is here. Michael is here. Leonidas is here. George is here. Comics and Cartoons and Comics, sorry, is here. Manny says, hello, chat, RJ, and everyone. Have a good evening. So Manny is here. Michael says they can hear me. Great. Great. I just come over from John's Long Box. We were talking about the Superman movie, which I didn't actually get to see yet. I was going to go see it this last weekend, but I got a little sidetracked with friends, so we didn't actually get to go see it. I'm hoping to see it this weekend, but John and I were talking about it, and if John has a moment or two, he's probably going to drop by for a little bit, and we'll talk a little more about the movie, just the general gist of Superman and presenting Superman to the world. If anybody wants to know, if you're new here, the trailer that we saw at the first of this is for my new book that's going to be coming out, Fade to Blue. We just have the sign-up page up for it right now, and it is the link for it is in the description of this video. You can go there and watch the trailer again, see some more of the art if you want to, and leave your email address if you want to wait for the project or be informed when the project goes live. Let me just check here, make sure I sent John the link for this live stream. I'm not entirely sure I did. Oh, yeah, I did. Good enough. Okay, coming back. Sorry again with my Amish levels of technical skill here. Tony says, let's see, we got oh yeah, I also say this at the first, I keep on forgetting, but if anybody has any questions for me, just put them in the chat and we'll see if we can get to them before the end of the stream. Just tag me in it or put a question mark and we'll see if we can get to the comments. Depends on how much John and I go off on a sidetrack if he shows up. We'll go over a couple of comments we got right off the bat. First, Zorro says, Carmen America reminds me more of Kingdom Come comic than Power Girl, Power Trip, or the Huntress Origin comics. So yes, Comicsgate comics are the only comics that are good as old school comics. Okay, I haven't read too much of Carmen America. We'll just put John up there in the background as well. And Tony also says, the whole thing that bugs me about the Superman film is that it's just another James Gunn movie. He keeps making the same film over and over again. It's just Guardians of the Galaxy, but with Superman standing in for Star-Lord, the message of his films is always, the family you make is better than the family you were born with. Wow. I didn't think about that, Tony, but that is very much a 2010s and to now way of looking at comic books. If you ever listen to some of the podcasts that I listen to from Marvel, they're always about your found family. I'm thinking, yeah, it's because you hate your own family and there's something wrong with you there. But that's one of the things that I never really liked about modern comics. But John was saying about Americana, before I bring John back in, we're talking about Americana and about how Superman movie is very much Americana. There's something I ran into over the last week was a stupid Asmongold video. It was like a minute and a half, and he was talking about people throwing bricks at cops, and he was saying he doesn't mind what people wearing masks if they're cops, and he minds it if it's just normal people wearing masks. And I said to myself, okay, what you're trying to boil it down to, and he doesn't want to get at, is the whole thing is a morality thing. If you're upholding morality, like you're being the cops and you're being moral and you're upholding the law, then sure, you can wear a mask because you're doing what's right. You're doing something heroic. But if you're just a normal guy and you're not doing something heroic, if you're actually doing something immoral, then no, you can't wear masks. And that's the kind of thing that I was thinking about when I was talking to John about Superman, is that it goes back to the moral center, one of the moral centers of America. What do you think, John? That is the heart of America. That's the heart of Superman. And that's why when you do Superman well, you got to respect that. And that's one of the things that people don't respect today, because we don't have, a blanket morality that everybody agrees on anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's hard for me to talk about the Superman movie, and I don't want to give spoilers because you didn't see it, but that's Lois is kind of fighting with Superman. She knows he's Superman in this movie from the beginning of the movie, and she's like, oh, I'm punk rock. I grew up to question everything, and she goes, you love everything, and he just interrupts her and goes, yeah, that's because everything's beautiful. you know, and it kind of shames her, and she makes a face. And I thought that scene was beautiful, brilliant rather, because it was like a less is more. Like she could have said like, I had a bad upbringing, you know, I hate my father, but in like 3 sentences we learned everything we need to know about Lois, and Superman's rebuttal just gave us everything we need to know about Superman. And it kind of shamed her. And then later on, they're in his childhood bedroom, and she's walking around going, he is exactly like he says, you know. And I just liked it because it was very respectful and reverent to Superman, who I'm very protective of. I don't know if that answers your question, but
yeah, it does. But it's funny that you should say that, because here's where it goes in my mind. I did a lot of I do a lot of research sometimes in like psychological things, because you got to understand these people. You got to understand psychological things, just because that's where they're coming from, and some of them have problems with their minds. But that's the thing about Superman, is the fact that he is that good, and he does see things in that way, and that's who he is. But here's the problem with some of the Superman versions that we've had in the past. It goes into the psychological. Sometimes there's a thing called toxic positivity, where people see things in black and white, and if they're toxically positive, it's because they can't process things correctly in their mind. So if the thing is that if you have someone like that and you cross them, they can go from toxic positive, seeing you as the best thing in the world, to you're my absolute enemy, I'm going to destroy you, in just a flip of a switch. And that's what I think a lot of these comic book writers are in their minds. Like, I mean, that's how their minds work. They see things in that way. Is like, you cross me, you're dead to me, and it doesn't matter if you're my family or not. And that would be a really good way to actually tell a story, to have 2 different characters, like a Superman character and another one. Superman, you're actually I think you're on mute, John. But
yeah,
Superman,
I disagree with you, and you're dead to me now, RJ. Okay.
yeah. But Superman actually
right.
believes that. Superman is actually that way. There is no flipping of the switch like there would be in the Injustice world, right? Where he kills Joker.
Yeah. I was distracted reading all the comments. Like I found like a couple of silly things in the movie. Like she keeps bringing up punk rock, and Superman goes, I'm punk rock. I like the Crab Joys. And she's like, the Crab Joys aren't real punk rock. That's pop, and they suck. And Superman just goes, but I like them, you know. And they go into his bedroom, and he's got this Crab Joys. It just like, yeah, he likes the hokey bands because he's Superman. Like, of course he doesn't like the real rebellious punk rock bands, because he's well adjusted. You know, I don't know. I know Logic doesn't like it, but that's fine. Oh, RJ, when you left, somebody brought up something. I think it might have been Logic. I said, do you think it has to be silly and appeal to children if it's a Superman movie? I think Logic said that. And I said, absolutely. Superman movie has to appeal to children because it's Superman. And if you make a Superman movie and it doesn't appeal to children, you fundamentally failed in your task, which is why Man of Steel, I think, is one of the worst Superman movies. It does not appeal to children. That movie was that's like taking Mickey Mouse and making an adult Mickey Mouse movie. That's not what Superman is supposed to. It's supposed to be for kids, like Star Wars. If you don't make a Star Wars movie for children, you're misusing the Star Wars IP. Now, you make a Star Wars movie that children could like, you don't pander to the kids, and therefore adults like it too. Like the original Star Wars did not pander to children. Arms were getting cut off. There was violence. You know, there was sexuality and everything, but kids loved it, and adults loved it, and people grew up loving it. That's why Man of Steel failed to me, is that was a Superman movie made strictly for adults. They paid no consideration for children. So what do you think? Am I being crazy?
No, you're not being crazy. That's the way I look at comic books. That's the way I write my comic books. I mean, I go a little bit harder in the fact that, you know, I think things like the Iliad and the Odyssey should be children's books, you know, and there's a lot of violence in there. But at the same time, I think that if you're going to make a comic book today and a comic book movie, you got to have it appeal to everybody, as many people as possible. With the shrinking market there is for superheroes, especially in comics, you got to make it appeal to the youngest you can get to and the oldest you can get to at the same time, and that's completely possible.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a guy gets killed right in front of Superman. And Superman is unable to prevent it. He didn't seem to care after the scene was like there was no room in the movie. That another one of my strange complaints about the movie was there was no rest. There was 2 short rest scenes. You know, like a movie just has a scene where you could catch your breath. You know, the good guy, the bad guy are hiding, and the monsters are over there, and they can talk about their feelings. This movie had like it was constant action. So Superman didn't have a time to mourn that guy, and that was a pretty shocking scene. I thought it just cemented how evil Lex Luthor is. It made me almost not like Metamorpho. You know, my major criticism is I don't like Jimmy Olsen. He's kind of a jerk, and Metamorpho let that happen. So those are my 2 major criticisms. That and the S.
Well, I completely agree that you need a cool down scene. That's one of the things, because my books always start just, well, except for Fade to Blue, they all start like 100%. You're starting with action, and then I make sure it's, you know, end of chapter 1, beginning of chapter 2, you get a cool down so that the entire thing is not so fast paced that you never stop. So that's one of the things. Yeah, James Gunn movies just don't give you time to breathe sometimes.
Yeah. You know, it's like a song that's all chorus. You know what I mean? You need that musical change up.
Logic says, RJ, when I was a kid, I preferred things that didn't cater to me as a child. Some prefer simple and easy, and some prefer intricate, complex, and dark. Why can't both be valid as a preference? I think you can. Here's the thing. I'm saying that you can do both at the same time. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I agree with Logic. I think he thinks that we're disagreeing. No, I agree with Logic. My example is Superman, Star Wars. Star Wars was made for children, but it didn't pander to children. I think the original Star Wars did not, and then forget about Empire Strikes Back. That was pretty dark and scary. I remember kids screaming when that ice monster came out, and then Han Solo cuts its arm off. You know, it was, and then that Minoc thing comes down when they're inside the you know, Luke gets his hand cut off. But once we got to Return of the Jedi, that's when I feel George Lucas started to pander to children. And I know it's a sacred cow, but Return of the Jedi is my least favorite of the movies because of that pandering to children. You can make great children's literature without pandering to them. And I think the Harry Potter books, if you read the Harry Potter books, that is great children's literature that does not pander to children. It treats children as intelligent. It explains politics, relationships, school year, and then like problems with family. It's really, the movies pander a little bit. I'm not going to argue, but there you go. What do you think of that?
Zach Dan says, we're not arguing. We're just agreeing aggressively.
Yeah. I'm not arguing.
I'm absolutely agree with that. Is the fact that you're a good storyteller can appeal to as big an audience as possible, and if that means that the kids can take it down to their level and the adults can bring it up to their level, no problem. Can do. I mean, just look at the thing that I was making Crom the Destroyer. I go back to Marvel's version of Conan, right? And you got a lot of blood everywhere, but there's no guts. And every time you see blood, it's colored black. I mean, the kid mind can be protected in simple ways like that, whereas the adult mind is like, yeah, I know what's going on there. It's really simple things that you can use, and techniques and tricks and good writing that you can appeal to both at the same time.
What do you think about this way to reuse villains without making the heroes look useless? Be clever. Yeah.
I don't know. That's an interesting question, but I don't really know.
I don't think I'll have that problem because my comics aren't monthly. If I had to churn out 12 issues a year, I'd probably Return of Boss Moxie. Although I do have a Return of Boss Moxie in the works. But that's one of the problems with the Joker is the guy shows up every 3 issues, and I'm freaking tired of the Joker. Like every writer who takes over the Fantastic Four, Phil Moskowitz is taking over the Fantastic Four. That means we got to get his take on Doctor Doom. We got his take on Galactus. Phil Moskowitz is now writing Batman. That means we got to get his take on the Joker. I think the editors should be like, listen, man, we used the Joker too many times in the past couple of years. What else you got? What else you got?
That's one of the problems with modern comics right now is the fact that they concentrate on the villains more than the heroes because the people writing it would rather write villains. And like literally, I did an entire covered an entire Marvel podcast where they just said that over and over again. They like writing the villains more than the heroes. So, I think that's one of the things that's missing from good comic books today.
Writing the villain is fun,
it is fun, but if you enjoy writing the villain more than writing the hero, so much so that you can't tell which is which in your comic book, you get yourself a problem.
Oh yeah. Like, just get back to writing for look at Chris Claremont's X-Men. What was I, 12 to 14 when those comics came out? And I look at the Hellfire Club. I bring this example up all the time. As an adult, I look at the Hellfire Club and I'm horrified of the Hellfire Club. Like, they are awful. All the implied stuff, the subtleties that John Byrne's art brought in, and a little bit of dialogue that Chris Claremont threw in. If you read between the lines, the Hellfire Club is the Jeffrey Epstein of Sebastian Shaw is not a good person. The Karen Frost, the White Queen, is Ghislaine Maxwell. They were doing horrible stuff to Jean Grey, but they did it subtly. So as a kid, I just thought they were like, turning her evil, whatever that meant. But as an adult, you read between the lines. But they didn't pander to kids. They told a very adult story in a way that kids could read, kind of get the gist, know that they're bad guys. And then an adult, like I honestly think if when I was 12 years old, if my parents had read the Hellfire Club, they probably wouldn't have let me collect comic books anymore. That's, and it just drives me nuts now when I see everybody. White Queen is marrying Tony Stark. White Queen's running the X-Men, right? White Queen is one of the most evil villains in all of Marvel comics. So, they all like the villains better. What does that say about the Marvel people?
The funny thing when you started talking about it and John Byrne and his X-Men is the fact that here you got Chris Claremont and John Byrne working on together on the X-Men, and they took some really stupid villains and made them into really good comics and protagonists for, even if it was just one comic. Like, I don't know, like the Red Scorpion, I can't remember, or what the heck is his name? The guy who, he looks like a devil. He has a red armor on, things like that.
Red?
Yeah, Eric the Red, yes.
Yeah.
And Sauron or the
Sauron, the pterodactyl guy.
Exactly. I mean, it's like they're stupid villains. Anybody else who are bad writers would write them and it would be a throwaway comic, but you can use, if you're a good writer, you can make any villain into something that's a good story. Yeah.
I love those Savage. RJ, why are they not making MCU movie? Kazar, you get that guy who plays Reacher, Alan Richman, is that his name? That guy as Kazar, and Sydney Sweeney as Shanna. Throw a leopard skin bikini on Sydney Sweeney, swinging around through the Savage Land fighting dinosaurs, and then spaceships could even show up. RJ, me and you just wrote the world's biggest blockbuster movie. First off, Sydney Sweeney in a leopard skin bikini, right there. We don't even need a script. And then dinosaurs and aliens. Come on, Marvel. What are you doing? Nobody wants to see Miss Marvel Part 2. Nobody wants to see Scarlet Witch and the Vision Part 3. They want to see Sydney Sweeney in a leopard skin bikini fighting dinosaurs. Right?
I honestly
Logic,
think, I don't know.
Right about that, Logic?
I honestly think that here's the weirdest way I could put it. I think that Savage Land and Kazar is too highbrow for people to actually connect it to the MCU. They just wouldn't get it. You know what I mean? There's like,
I don't like. in this Superman movie, they talk about pocket dimensions and stuff like that. You know, in the Marvel movies, they talk about time travel and alternate dimensions. I think they could buy that there's a place in Antarctica that's created by alien technology, and it's used as a preserve for all animals alive and extinct, and we only were able to access it now to pierce this severe weather that protects it. There you go.
Although I tell you, John, I would love to see the flying sharks.
There you go. Was that Lobo has flying sharks?
No, it's the Savage Land. That's how they get around. They have sharks with wings.
Oh, that would
and
be awesome.
they have them as steeds.
There you go. You know, Marvel, take my money. You know, and then Sydney Sweeney as Power Girl. That for right. I'm trying to click on the comments. I forget it's your channel. I'm just here to say John is always right. Sydney Sweeney is anything. Yeah, she could be DC's Power Girl, and she could be when we make the Thomas Valiant movie, she could be Cardinal. This woman in the red right behind us, and she could be Shanna of the Savage Land.
Yeah, that's one of the problems right now. I don't think you could make, let's say, well, I mean, here's the example. That's they could have made a really good Black Widow movie if they made it when Scarlett Johansson actually fit the same beautiful mold as when she came into the MCU, and they delayed it so long so that it didn't actually work correctly.
They released the movie after the character was already dead. Who cares at that point? You know what I mean?
I'm just saying they don't want to. They don't want beautiful women in the MCU anymore.
They really messed up with and then they didn't release it in the theaters. You know, remember it went right to streaming or something like that.
I have no idea. I didn't even know that they're making a new Judge Dredd film.
Takiti Waka Waka, is that his name? The guy who directed Thor: Love and Thunder.
Oh, please no.
Yeah, he's the absolute worst person to direct
Judge Dredd.
Judge
Dredd. Carl Urban's Judge Dredd is like cinema gold, if you ask me.
Yeah, that guy, I don't like his movies.
I don't like his humor. It's basically Josh Whedonism. He's trying to imitate.
Yeah,
and
it's bad enough for Josh Whedon to do it. Now we got Josh Whedon 4 times removed. Yeah, at Takiti Waka Waka, he purposely said like they didn't read the source material or anything like that. I don't know. I why make a Thor movie when you don't care about the source material?
Plus the fact that why make a Judge Dredd movie today? I mean, he's basically English Punisher, and they hate Punisher, right? I mean, they're just going to destroy the character.
Well, he's going to go after white people that make mean tweets about Muslims.
Here's another funny thing. I'll just tie this whole thing together. Not really, just going off on a tangent, but one of the stupid things, again, I just give me what YouTube gives me for stuff and I watch it. So Asmund Gold's always going on about V for Vendetta, right? And he keeps on saying, we're going to get that if people don't turn around. I'm looking at England right now going, are you stupid? We have that right now. It's just left wing, because V for Vendetta was done by Alan Moore, who was a leftist, and he thought, you know, all of my enemies are going to do what I would do if I got into control. It's V for Vendetta is what we have in England right now, except for the fact it's left wing, because Alan Moore had to paint it as right wing in his kooky conspiracy theory of a story.
I saw a cartoon that had Alan Moore like frowning, and it's Rorschach talking, and it says, "I'm going to torture all the criminals until I get what I want." And it says, "This is fascism." And then underneath it had V. It says, "I'm going to torture all the politicians and blow up public works until I get what I want." And then he's smiling. This is the right way, you know. Killing the criminals is fascism, but killing, I mean, I have no love for politicians, but imposing my will on the body politic, that's good. But don't touch those criminals. Rorschach is the bad guy.
It's funny. You just made me think of something. It's maybe this would be a good test. I'm not entirely sure. This is off the top of my head. If you can't get your writer, let's say, if you put your writer in the world that he creates and he can't live there, then you got yourself a problem with your writer. And I don't think Alan Moore would want to live in his own world. He would not survive it. He just wouldn't.
I mean, like Robert Kirkman wrote The Walking Dead. He clearly doesn't want to live in it. You know what I mean?
No, but you could, at the very least, he could survive it. I mean, he knows enough about survival techniques that he could survive it. I don't think Alan Moore would last 5 minutes in his own world.
Oh, I get what you're saying. Okay, yeah. Yeah, none of these liberals. You know, I'm a blue-collar working guy, and I would starve to death in a wheat field. You know what I mean? But, like, all of these people advocating for communism, it's just like, I love asking them, oh, what would you do into communism? I'm going to go to the beach and I'm going to write poetry. It's like, no, you're not. You're going to be working in the coal mines because you don't get to decide. Like all these people who advocate for this, they're the first ones to die because they don't know what it's like to do a good hard day's work. Knock it off.
I agree completely. It's one of the things that I'm sorry, but if you're a millennial anywhere from millennial to today, you just don't get it. If you didn't live through the Cold War where, you know, communism was the embodiment of evil, you just don't get it. I don't think.
Yeah. Yep. I forget who said it. This is the only way to cure poverty is to create more wealth. Yet communism doesn't create wealth. You know, it just redistributes it. So, you know, you say that to people, they go like, huh?
There you go, John. I think that's a good way to describe the modern comic book industry as well. They don't create wealth; they just try to redistribute the wealth that they've taken from other places and other companies.
Well, look at all of these women in the women's basketball league, whatever it's called, WNBA. Pay us what we deserve. Pay us what we deserve. Yeah, I understand. Like one of them made a point that says that like a manager at In-N-Out Burger makes more money than the girls from the NWA. But like these people need to understand. You know what is it? Keynesian economics says that value is determined by the work, whereas you know regular. I don't even know what you call it. Regular economics is value is worth is created by the value. You know, like they think that they work hard, and I'm not saying these women don't work hard. They train, they run up and down. These women are athletes, but they're not putting asses in seats. They're not selling tickets. They're not getting commercials made. You know what I mean? Like, sorry, and your whole league exists because it's leeching off the men's W. Ask any woman. RJ, you got a wife, right? You got yourself one of those wives. Go ask your wife. Do you want to go to the mall? Do you want to go to Target? Or would you rather go see a basketball game, the women's basketball league? I'll buy tickets to the women's basketball game or we'll go to the mall. What would your wife choose?
Go to the mall. Yeah.
Right. Sorry. There you go. That's why you women aren't making any money. You got to understand how economics works.
Although I got to say, I mean, if it's the only thing around, I mean, when I went to go see the women's, what was it? Women's World Cup when it was here, right? I went to go see a game. It was like, but if I had the choice between the Women's World Cup and the actual World Cup, I'd go to see the World Cup.
I'd go see women's beach volleyball, but I think most men would.
Thank you much for the super chat, Sound Engraver. She says, does Guns movie give you hope for Hollywood? Not particularly, no.
I liked it, and I still don't have hope for Hollywood.
I'm probably going to touch on that in my Saturday video. I'm going to talk a little bit about the movies that are coming out and why they're coming out as basically rage bait.
I'm so curious what you're going to say about the Superman movie. And no, I'm not going to see Fantastic Four this weekend. I gotta wait. Or Logic just asked. I'm going to wait because I think it's going to be bad. I think it's going to be woke. I just don't want to be preached to. I don't want to be enraged. Fantastic Four is still my favorite comic book of all time. Superman's my favorite character. Fantastic Four is my favorite comic book, and I had a feeling Superman I was gonna like, but I just have a feeling Fantastic Four is gonna be awful. I think all 4 actors were miscast. The guy who plays the Thing is fine because he's CGI for most, but his voice is off. That guy who plays Johnny Storm looks like he's about to sneeze and cry at the same time. What else can I say about Pedro Pascal other than he is the creepiest person in the world? He's the definition of ick. And that woman who plays the Invisible Woman, she's not pleasant to look at. She's too angular. Like, yes, she's attractive, but she's attractive in like a harsh way. The Invisible Woman is supposed to be more motherly, you know? I don't know. I think, am I annoying you, Soundgraver? I'm sorry. Free yourself of the litany of woke. I agree. That's why I don't watch anything new until I hear from people that I respect their opinion if it's worth watching.
Let me put it this way. I'll put it in comic book terms. John Byrne can do a really wholesome and beautiful Invisible Woman at the same time. If you get the Sal Buscema, he can't do a good Invisible Woman because Sal Buscema is a man who focuses on the mean look of things. You know, that's the way I would put it. And what you got is in this movie is like a Sal Buscema Invisible Woman. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah. It's funny because in one of my scripts to Marcus Kelliger, I said, throw some Sal Buscema thugs in the background. Because, right? Doesn't Sal Buscema have that?
Oh, yeah. Mean look. Everybody's got a mean look.
Yeah, everybody's got a mean look.
Let's see. We got a couple of comments here. Let's see. Francisco says it's women's empowerment. So yeah, a lot of people are starting to put up movie reviews of it. I'm not sure I'll start watching those before.
Yeah, I heard it got leaked to the internet already. I don't know if that's true.
Well, there have been some showings already, so I don't know where, but the people have come out and actually seen it. So they said that at the very least, Galactus was done well. So yeah, that may be something to look forward to.
I still think Christopher Walker would have been the best Galactus. I'm here to eat your planet. There's nothing you can do about it. I'm going to devour the Earth.
Sound of Graver says, our culture has beaten it into our heads to watch everything. We don't need to. If it makes us sad, it isn't worth it.
And I got to add Sound of Graver. First off, you're absolutely right. Second off, don't hate watch anything, ladies and gentlemen. We have a finite amount of years on this planet. Don't hate watch stuff because they don't care. They just see it as a view.
Yeah, I'm completely in agreement with that. I used to, like, let's say when I was in university, I went to see everything. I was a movie junkie. I went to see a movie almost every night, and if I had to watch things over and over again, I would. But now, I mean, it's been 5 years. Like I said on your stream, John, it's been 5 years since I went to the movie. It's like none of this interests me, so I'm not going.
My wife and I love going to the movies, and we were just like, there's nothing worth watching, you know. We don't have kids. We could go to the movies, all weekend long. You know, a couple of weeks ago, we saw the Chosen during the day. They showed like 4 or 5 episodes in the movies, and then at night we went to go see The Working Man. You know, the Chuck Dixon vigilante movie. So it was funny. Jesus in the morning, violence at night. You know, we'll go to the movies twice a day if there's something worth watching, but we're going less and less and less because there's really nothing I want to watch anymore. Oh, maybe the people in the crowd will think this is funny. During the trailers for Superman, they showed that they're re-releasing the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, and I've never seen it because up until like a year ago, I hated the Teenage Mutant Ninjas. Just irrational hatred, you know. I
completely agree. I hated them as well.
So my wife was like, "Oh my God, I love this movie. I saw it when I was 18 years old," and blah blah blah. And she goes, "Can we see it?" I was like, "Yeah, let's." So I'm going to see the original Teenage Mutant Ninja. My wife already bought the tickets in the movie theater, so I said, "We'll finally see it." So we'll go.
Alessandro, here's my take on things, and I usually get called a 1930s militaristic German when I say these things. If you look at cartoons, especially over the last 20 years, it's degenerate, and it's meant to be so. I mean, there's a degeneration of portrayal of body shapes, and the thing was that older cartoons, you look back to things like Popeye and Bugs Bunny, stuff like that. No, they're anthropomorphized, but they don't look like human beings. They flop all over the place.
Right.
But it's condensing down what the basically a stick figure and putting a couple of things on it. So it's down to its essence. Whereas the stuff you got over the last 25 years, after we did He-Man and stuff like that, the stuff we got now and since 2000 is a degeneration of the human shape. It's not actually meant to look like something human. It's supposed to be a blob, and that's why you get these people, they don't think there's a difference between a man and a woman, for crying out loud. So how the heck are you going to draw the difference between that when you're supposed to condense things down to their essence? They can't do it.
Yeah, cartoon art is so bad these days. Everything looks the same. Everything looks like it's just made from cheap cartoon factory number 6. Okay, order us some new Thomas Valiant cartoons. Okay, cheap cartoon factory number 6, and you see Thomas Valiant's all short with big round eyes and a bean mouth.
I haven't seen Nosferatu, but at the same time, you look at anime and what they're doing in Japan. I mean, you got some spectacular art. Some of this stuff looks painted, for crying out loud. It just blows America, and they're cartooning away completely.
Oh, I just got another backer. We're $19 away from the next stretch goal. Can we get it?
Opponent of Stupidity says the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie is one of the best comic book movies ever made.
I'm looking forward to it. My wife is so happy, so it'll be a success because she's so happy. It's going to take her back to her time when she's hanging out with her friends when she's 18 years old, So it'll be a success for that. We went to go see Die Hard last year because I've never seen Die Hard. So she was like, "You never saw Die Hard?" And it was playing in the local theater for Christmas. So we went to go see Die Hard, and she just went because she was like, "All right, we'll go see Die Hard." And man, we had such a blast. That was a great movie. She was like, "I'm so glad we saw this in the movie theater." We were laughing. One of the things we were like, "That guy's smoking." It just made me laugh that there's a crowd scene and there's a guy just smoking in the hallway, like stuff you don't see anymore. Big hair. It was great.
I always bring up this story. I don't know why, but I love watching old movies in the new movie theater. I don't know when this was. This is probably the late 90s, but my local movie theater, which was a multiplex, did a triple bill of old James Bond movies.
Oh,
and
wow.
before they started, Roger Moore actually showed up and did a presentation because he was vacationing in the area. So we had a half-hour talk from Roger Moore. Then we watched 3 James Bond movies, and it wasn't over till like 5 a.m.
Oh, wow. That is awesome. There was a local theater that was having a Harry Potter-a-thon, and they were going to show every Harry Potter movie, like bring blankets and pillowcases and stuff. But I don't know if I could last. That sounds fun sounds fun in theory, but I don't know about practice.
I have no idea, Logic. That's a good question. How many films in 2005 are not remakes, reboots, comic films, or franchise films? Actual original films, only horror films, I would say right now. Only horror movies would be anything that's original right now. And not all of them, because Megan and stuff like that, which barely would be a horror movie. But
Logic, you're absolutely right. It's like... It's everything is a remake, everything is a prequel, everything. It's like enough is enough. Let Star Wars die. I'm sorry, everybody. Let Star Wars die. It's over. They ruined it. Let's go. Sinners was an original movie. Yeah, was it any good? I just avoided it because I'm like, I'm not going to be preached. White people are bad. That's what I thought the movie was going to be, but I heard it was pretty good.
I'll bring it back to what I was talking about at the very first. They can't make a new movie because there's nothing that they can hang their hat on for basically the morality that you would need as the basis of your plot, because you can't start from scratch. But horror can exempt itself from that, because it's like, we're just going to make something horrific, and even morality is kind of, off to the side and thrown out the window sometimes, because you got horrific things happening. It's much more of a plot driven, we'll say, kind of genre than you would get in any other genre that I can think of, because you got people reacting to these. There's really no morality in a lot of, very few horror movies actually have any real moral purpose to them. So that's what I think.
I also, what was the last comedy that came out?
I don't know. Comedy was the first thing I gave up on when I noticed this woke crap started coming out.
But remember, there was always like a cheap, lowbrow comedy movie, like every summer, that you were kind of embarrassed that you liked. You didn't want to tell your friends. Yeah, it had a lot of gratuitous nudity, fart jokes and everything like that. But like everybody just saw it and everybody liked it. I'm thinking like Animal House, Porky's, Revenge of the Nerds. those were like a mainstream of American cinema. What was the last, as my friend calls them, slob comedy? When was the last slob comedy? Like American Pie, and that's going on 20 years ago. What was that other? Superbad? Is that? I forget if that's older or younger, but those are like the last two that I could think of. I'm sure they're not your type of movie, but I'm just saying that used to be a staple of every summertime. So we all get to go. We're all going to go to the nude beach, guys. They all, the teenagers just sneaking peeks.
We'll say, like, what the heck? Remember they cart the dead guy around. What the heck is the name of it?
Oh, Weekend at Bernie's.
Weekend at Bernie's, yeah. But if you're going to ask me, quite honestly, I'll tell you, I can pinpoint the last, I think, comedy that I went to see, and it wasn't really comedy. It was more of a kids movie, the comedy kind of thing, which probably Holes, 2003. That's probably the last thing I can remember.
Tropic Thunder, Michael Burtursk. Tropic Thunder, I dragged my wife to see, because I was just like, a comedy that looks funny, and I loved it. I laughed. But the funny thing is my wife was like, she sat down like, she was kicking the chair laughing, and like within 13, 14 minutes of watching this movie, she's like, I'm getting this DVD. So yeah, maybe that was the last one. The Hangover, I forgot about The Hangover. Yeah. The Naked Gun, it looks like, I appreciate that they're attempting to make a stupid comedy, but it just does not look funny.
I might go see Naked Gun. I actually might go see it.
Let me know.
Leslie Nielsen. I don't think. I don't know. I don't think this version with Leslie Nielsen is actually going to be. Well, the original Naked Gun movies weren't really raunchy, but they were the kind like The Hangover and things like that. They had things in them that is like, that's not appropriate for kids, right? But I don't know if this one is going to be like that or not.
I forget, because I know Airplane, which started that type of humor, had raunchy and gratuitous nudity, but I don't know if the Naked Guns did. I think the Naked Guns were more like family friendly, because I remember it was based on Police Squad. Police Squad was, TV PG, at least, didn't have network. But I forget. I forget. But it's Seth MacFarlane, so I just have no.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
I didn't realize that.
So I have no desire to see it.
Sandro says, speaking of comedies, an old film has now become a documentary. Idiocracy, yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. My wife, I had her watch Idiocracy. Now it's just like, it's coming true. We live it. Interstellar was good. I liked Interstellar. I love the Arrival logic. I really, really liked the Arrival. Did you see that movie?
I watched The Arrival, and I watched Interstellar too. Yeah.
I really liked. I really liked Arrival. I can't speak anymore. I got to go to bed, RJ. It's 10:30.
No problem. We got about
Good night,
15 minutes
everybody.
left, but John's got to go. So
Yeah.
I'll see what you knew about going through the chat. Thanks for showing up, John.
Thanks for having me. Good night, everybody. I didn't realize the time. Bye-bye.
All right. So since I only reduce myself here, and we'll see, we'll go through the chat and see if I can get back to some of the comments that I might have missed. I'm sure there are plenty. I'll go up just a little ways. So if anybody wants to re-up their comment to me, if you have one for me. Alessandro says, what are your thoughts on the Bandoc creator's statement that the black community has run out of moral currency? I'm not entirely sure what you're referring to, Alessandro, but I completely agree that yes, it has run out of moral currency. No one cares anymore. You can scream whatever ism, phobia to the heavens. Most people are just going to be numb to it by this point. We'll scroll down and scroll down. We already went over Logic's Finest question there. Scrolling down. Tony says, RJ, what is your opinion on the Japanese franchise of or fascination of degeneracy, Yuri, Yoi, and Lolai? Noticed a lot of those tropes in anime. I don't know if I could understand where they're coming from. I can give you my take on it. That's about it. Even if I pronounce them correctly, I don't even know. But I just say this. You can tell it's a non-Christian country. Let me put it that way. Even if you have Europe and things like that, they're not really Christian anymore. Even North America, it doesn't really seem that way. But at the same time, they're still based upon a Christian basis that's been there for thousands of years. Japan, not so much. And you can really see it in some of the things that they put in even their cartoons. So yeah. It's a fascination with, I don't know. It's a fascination with, I'll just say it, degeneracy. And that fascination is one that doesn't have the same taboos that were even historical within North America and Europe. So that's why it comes out in things like cartoons. That's all I can say to it, really. Let's see, scrolling down, see if there's any other comments for me. We'll get back to where we were. Logic's talking about The Arrival, the best film we had seen in the last 10 years. Tenet is a masterpiece. Brilliant non-linear storytelling, All Quiet on the Western Front. 2022 was brilliant as well. Yeah, non-linear storytelling is very difficult to do. So if someone can get it right, then they got themselves a moneymaker, although it's not for everybody, that's for sure. Let's see, scrolling down. See if we have any more comments for me. Leonidas says, hey, RJ and John, what are your favorite comic artists? What are my favorite comic artists of all time? Would probably be, I don't know, it's split between John Byrne and George Perez. Really couldn't pick one out of the two. I'd say John Byrne just because John Byrne did more books that I liked. But still, I love, that's why I have Renzo, by the way. I think he's a young combination of John Byrne and George Perez. But I love artists that have a clean line and a clean, rounded line. So people like Paul Smith, love Paul Smith's art. Although, at the same time, Mark Texeira and people like that are beautiful. I love their art. They're just not my number ones. They would be my number twos. I like the clean lines of, again, John Byrne, George Perez, Paul Smith. Who else we got? And again, angular stuff I don't mind. Walter Simonson is one of the most beautiful artists, and he's done some of the best comics in the world in all time. But at the same time, you got to steep yourself in his work in order to actually get into it if you're not a comic book person. So, maybe it's more of a style. It's like Walter Simonson would be stylistic, like Jack Kirby. Whereas somebody like Paul Smith is a combination of sequential art with illustration. Because the two are two different things. Alessandro says, RJ, looking back at your old videos where you pointed out where the progressives were right, would you change or add anything today? I would have to go over the entire video in order to answer that question. Let's see. Alessandro also says, RJ, what do you think of Trump's recent diatribe? Again, I don't, he diatribes all the time, so you have to be more specific. Let's see. Scrolling down. Will Helmus says Japan has had a small Christian presence for centuries, but it was always highly suppressed. Yeah, they're believe it or not, for those people who don't know, there's actually a Catholic saint who was a samurai. That's how far it goes back into Christianity goes back into Japan. But anyway, the funny thing is that the biggest, if I remember correctly, the biggest Christian presence in Japan was in Nagasaki. And that, of course, you can see why got obliterated pretty quickly, even after the suppression. Let's see, RJ, who's your favorite, excuse me, who's your favorite mystery writer? Who's my favorite mystery writer? What's his name? Belisarius. There you go. I don't even know. I'm not exactly the biggest person to read mysteries. It would take a lot of time, and they're dense books, and I just don't have that time. I do love detective stories, though, and the funnest detective stories I can think of would be Magna PI. Excuse me. Give me 1 second. So yeah, mystery writers. Yeah, I really can't speak to that too well. Tony also says, RJ, have you seen the leaked photographs of Nolan's adaptation of The Odyssey? It looks pretty bad. I agree completely. It looks pretty bad. They're not going to do Odyssey correctly. If they do, I'll be pleasantly surprised, but I really don't think they are. Logic says, John Byrne is my favorite comic artist, full stop. His tech and backgrounds are unparalleled. Agreed. Well, I don't know. Again, George Perez might parallel them, but in a different way. Let's see. Scrolling down. See if I can get to the end of the chat. Let's see. Greg says, everything that they sell today is chrome covered rust. That's a good way to put it. The whole entertainment, Shylock, is a mirror on the mindset. Yeah, it's like you're I never thought of it in those specific terms, Greg, but you're absolutely right. It was, what was I doing over this last, when I was traveling over the last week or so? It was last week, actually. I was on a car ferry, and how you get those things where you can see that it's been painted over and then it rusted, and then it's been painted over and then it's rusted. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's a chrome covered rust that's been painted over. That's what modern entertainment is. Alessandro says, RJ, what I learned about the progressives is that they are everything they accuse others of being, and that pride describes them perfectly. Yeah, absolutely. The reason why they tell the stories that they do, and the reason why they have the villains that they do, is because they believe, well, first of all, they can't think outside their own box. And this has been proven. They've done some studies to show that the farther left you lean, the less you have an ability to see things from your opponent's perspective. Whereas the farther you are on the right, you are the exact opposite of that. You will look to see what your opponent's perspective is and try to understand it. But since they can't understand anybody but their own perspective, then what they think they're writing is, what would a villain look like? What would my opponent's villain look like? They will write a villain who is on the right-hand side of the spectrum, and they will put into the villain's mouth on the right-hand side of the spectrum the words of a leftist and the actions of a leftist, because they can only think, what would I do if I was to, let's say, take control of the entire country? Which is exactly what I was saying about the Alan Moore stuff with V for Vendetta. Alan Moore is a far leftist, and he wrote the British government at that time as being fascist, and he called them right wing, when he doesn't understand that fascism is the left wing thing, and what you're describing is what left wing people would do if they gain power, and that's what we see today. Completely understand and agree, Alessandro. Let's see. Not sure what Leonidas is talking about, but that's great. I'm glad he found something cool. Alessandro says, RJ, if I understand correctly, the progressives consider racism the deadliest sin and pride the greatest virtue. Oh, absolutely. Well, I think you hit the nail on the head right there, Alessandro. They just inverted Christianity. That's all they did. These people never create anything new. Even their own ideology is nothing new. And this goes back hundreds of years minimum. All they've done is taken the thing that they've hated, which is Christianity, basically, for hundreds of years and flipped it on its head so that they can gain power and control. That's it. Let's see. Scrolling down. Oh, Leonidas is talking about Samurai Crusader. Yeah, that would be interesting. Sandro says, speaking of film noir comics, I saw a 1991 TV movie with a similar premise. It's called Cast a Deadly Spell. You can easily find it on YouTube. Okay. I'll have to look that up. Let's see. Scrolling down. Oops. I went and jumped down in the chat instead of going through correctly. I apologize. I got to scroll up for a minute. Logic says, I'm not looking forward to Nolan's Odyssey. I'm disappointed but I have a theory of why it is. He says, segue, Hollywood writers are social ideology activists living in an echo chamber, no original films, and deconstruction of masculinity in the family. Agreed. Let's see, scrolling down. Tony says, RJ, have you seen the 1984 Repo Man? And if so, what is your opinion on it? I have, again, Tony, I probably saw Repo Man in 1984. So I couldn't tell you very much about it because I don't believe I liked it very much. There's at least two different movies called Repo Man anyway, so I might not be thinking of the one that you're thinking of. So again, not sure. Let's see. Tony also says, RJ, who's your favorite all-time comic book supervillain? Who's my favorite all-time comic book supervillain? That's a really difficult one. I've never really thought of, I don't really have favorite villains. I think of villains as the bad guys, so they're not my favorite. What's the best written villain in comic books? Oh, I don't even know. I really don't know. The only thing that comes to mind, and if I really thought about it, I would change my answer. So let me put it that way. It's probably Magneto. He's a villain. So yeah, that would be my only thing that I could think of that would stick out in my mind. Really as a well-written villain a lot of the time. Not all the time, but a lot of the time. Scrolling down, which is funny again because he's been made into a hero once again, which he isn't. Especially in the recent Marvel X-Men comic books. Let's see. George says, Magneto for me, hate it every time they try to make him a good guy. Yeah, there you go. The United says, same for him as for Doom. I never really saw Dr. Doom as the best villain in the world. He was an interesting villain, but not the best villain in the world. Okay, so we have hit 59 minutes and 35 seconds. So I have just gotten to the end of the chat. And since I like to go for only an hour, unless there's any new questions within the next 30 seconds, I am going to wrap this up. And I want to say thank you to John for showing up and talking comic books and movies with me. And thank you very much for everybody else in the chat for this random live stream that I'm starting to do every Wednesday. It's just a random live stream. Logic Finest says question. Sorry, 30 seconds are up, Logic. So thank you very much, everyone, for showing up. I think I will just leave it at that, and we'll just end the live stream. I'm not going to put any of my trailers on here. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. We had over 30 people in the chat, which is great to see, which usually means I get about 300 to 400 that are going to watch it anyway. So thank you, everyone, and I'll see y'all later, probably on Saturday. If you come and see my Saturday videos, definitely next Wednesday for Comic Book Team Up here with John. All right, I'll see y'all later.